Hey guys, it's Lauren. So today I'm going to be talking about my study abroad experiences. I kind of got inspired the other day from a video that I watched, and I wanted to share my study abroad experiences with you because I've had three very unique study abroad experiences when I was in college. All three of my study abroad experiences were in Japan, and when I said unique, I mean that they were three separate kind of study abroad trips that I went on. And the first one was I went with a school group. The second one, I went by myself on a kind of special independent research trip. And then the third time, I went through my university and I went on an exchange program to another university in Japan. I will say this though, that I chose my university because they have a very well established study abroad program, and about 75% of the students at my school end up going on a study abroad trip because of our unique study abroad experiences, which I did three of the unique study abroad experiences, which is I think all of them that you could do at my university. The first trip that I went on was the most popular trip that you can do at my university, which is a winter term study abroad trip. Winter term at my school is about a 3.5-week semester where you just take one class for 3 hours a day, but also it's the most popular time to study abroad at my university, especially if you have a double major or if you need to complete some graduation requirements or something and you can't study abroad for a full semester. For me, the reason why I did it was because it was kind of a warm-up to going to Japan full-time and staying there for a whole semester. So that is the reason why I chose to do that. And plus it was more travel-based rather than actually sitting down with a textbook and like reading and that kind of stuff. On this trip, I was with all Americans from my university, and we all went in a big group of about 30 plus two teachers. One of the teachers was my Japanese teacher and an American teacher who had lived in Japan and worked there for a period of time. And we basically just traveled around to about 6 different cities. We went to Tokyo, Osaka, Kyoto, Nagoya, and Hiroshima. And we toured a bunch of museums, we went and looked at a lot of temples, we did a lot of fun stuff while we were there. We even went to Eigamura, which is like where they film a lot of period dramas, which is in Kyoto. Though this was a travel trip, we did have an academic component to it, which is we wrote some papers while we were there with our laptops, or we could handwrite them, as well as we had to give different proposals, and we had different projects that we had to do day to day. And then after the actual class was over, we had about 3 weeks after we came back to the US to submit a research paper about like 5 or 8 pages long or something like that, double spaced, to get our final grade. That was kind of like our final exam for the class. The second study abroad experience was also a winter term trip, but instead of going with the whole school group, I went by myself over to Japan, and I did an independent research project. My school offers what is it called? It's called Undergraduate $4.99 Research. $4.99 is like the title of the class, and you can do it in America or you can go take it abroad, and I decided to take it abroad, and I am lucky enough to have a relative who lives in Japan right now. My mom's cousin lives over in Japan, and he teaches English at a university over there, so I went and researched in his classroom how Japanese students learn English. So what I did was I observed his classroom, I kind of made some notes, I helped him teach the class a little bit, and it was a lot of fun. And this time was a little bit more cultural than the other time that I went because I actually stayed at his house, and he is married to a Japanese woman and has 2 kids who of course are half Japanese, half American. So it was interesting to see how the two fusion of cultures worked. And I also got to interact with some of the neighbors when they came over sometimes. They came over for dinner one time, I think 2 different sets of neighbors. Some of the wife's friends also came over, and it was just really interesting. This is my first time really interacting with Japanese people outside of my normal Japanese friends, who, my one friend, Reiko, she spoke fluent English, and I consider her more of an American than Japanese, actually. When I came back to the US from this trip, I had to write a whole long, about like 12-page double-spaced research paper compiling all of my observations as well as pulling all kinds of other academic research that people have already done on how Japanese people learn English. So that was really difficult semester for me because I was taking four full-time classes as well as trying to complete this research paper, and the teacher who was my sponsor also got sick, so it took me almost all semester after I came back from Japan to get that taken care of. So I would not recommend you doing that kind of trip unless you are really dedicated and really like the research. Me personally, I enjoyed doing the research, but I had nothing to do with my major at all. I'm a double major in international business and finance and a double minor in Asian studies and international studies, so that teaching English over there and the research really didn't help with my major at all. The third study abroad experience that I had was an exchange program through my university going to another university in Japan. So what an exchange program is, you're basically taking students from a university abroad and a university in the US and you're swapping them. So I went over to a university in Japan, and then some people from the university in Japan came over to my university in the US, and we pay tuition, the exact same tuition that we would normally pay to our home university. So that is how an exchange program works. The university in Japan that I went to was Kansai Gaida University, and it was just on the outskirts of Osaka. What I describe it as, it's kind of right in the middle between Osaka and Kyoto. So I was in the Kansai region, and it was the most cultural experience that I had out of all the study abroad experiences, because I was actually living in Japan, and I was living amongst the regular Japanese community that was there, not really separated with any Americanness going on whatsoever, even though about half of the people in my international program were from America, but only me and one other person were from my university at this program at the time. What I did was pretty much the same thing that I would do in America. I went to classes during the day mostly, and then I went around and either studied at night or went and observed or went into Osaka or went into Kyoto over the weekends and stuff, and all the classes were taught in English, so I did not have to know or be fluent in Japanese whatsoever to be in this program. Kansai Gaida has a special Asian Studies program for international students, and that is the program that I went through. And I took business classes mostly that they offered because my majors are international business and finance, and I needed to finish up my international business major. And I had actually been plotting, and I had been making sure that all of my classes that I needed to take abroad were taken in the semester that I went to Kansai Gaida University, because my degree would not be complete for international business if I didn't meticulously plan out what semester I was going to be studying abroad and exactly what classes I needed to take when I was abroad. So I recommend you keep that in mind when you study abroad, that there's going to be specific requirements from your school, and some credits might not transfer from the university in Japan over to your normal school. So you need to check with your study abroad office as well as the department that your degree is in at your home university. You could have two different kinds of living situations when you're at Kansai Gaida. You could either do a homestay or you could be in the international dormitories. Normally, students in Japan don't stay in dormitories like in the US. Normally, you travel to your school and you live on campus. You're in the dormitories that are on campus, but that's not the case at Japanese schools. Most of the time, the students still live with their families, and sometimes they commute up to 1-2 hours a day in order to get to the university, and they stay at university all day. They take their classes, and then they study at university at night, and then they go home on a later train. I personally chose to stay in the international dormitories, and that's because I am American and I really do not want to be told when I need to be back into my house, or I really don't want to be told that I need to be back for dinner at this time. I wanted to kind of dictate my own schedule and be able to travel around, because I really hadn't been able to do it that much since I had been in the other times that I'd been to Japan previously. So the international dorms that I stayed at were all filled with international students, and also I was able to have a Japanese roommate. So every once in a while, you can apply and you can get a Japanese student from the university to actually live in the dormitory for the semester that you were there, and I was able to get a Japanese roommate that time. I absolutely love living in the dorms because I got to live with people from England, other people from America, and then people down the hallway were from places like Sweden, Norway, Holland. So many people were from places in Europe, so it was truly an international dormitory. I got to talk with all of them, see kind of what their cultures were like, and also because I had the Japanese roommate, I got to talk with her, and she's one of my really good friends now. And it was just an amazing time. Even though we weren't allowed to drink alcohol and there were a whole ton of rules that we had to abide by, it was a lot better than what you had to do for homestay. And that is because you have to answer to your homestay family. You have to be back at a certain time for curfew and different stuff like that. So that's why I decided to live in international dormitories, and it worked out so well for what I wanted. The only downside to living in the dorm is that you didn't live right on the school's campus. The international dormitories were about a 10-12 minute bike ride away from school, and that was a little bit of an adjustment for me because I'm used to living on campus in America where literally you just step right outside your dormitory and you're on the school's campus, and it only takes like a 5-minute walk to get to class. That was a little bit of an adjustment for me, as well as it was adjustment to bike everywhere you went in Japan. At least in the general area of the school, I biked everywhere because it was a little bit too far for me personally to walk. But everywhere else in Japan, you either took the bus or the train, and that was a little bit of getting used to because I'm used to just hopping in my car and going anywhere I want in the US, and now I had to answer to timetables. I had to know when the trains and the buses were going to go, and that was a little bit difficult for me, but then I really enjoyed public transportation by the end of my trip to Japan, and it's so much more convenient sometimes than having to hop in your car and deal with gas and all of that stuff. The other hard part about living in Japan for a whole 4 months was that it came to around Christmas and Thanksgiving time, and I got a little bit homesick during those times because I've never been away from my family for Thanksgiving before, and it was almost Christmas time by the time I left to go home. And I recommend, if you're American and you're very prone to being homesick, especially around the holidays and you're used to being at home with your families, to maybe go in the spring semester to Japan instead, because there aren't as many holidays. Like Easter is really the only holiday that's in spring. So that was the only period that I had a really hard adjustment. I remember like breaking down around Thanksgiving because everybody's Facebook statuses for my friends at home and everything was like, I'm going home for Thanksgiving, and I'm like, I can't go home. Despite all the ups and downs that I had during my study abroad experiences, I have grown so much as a person because I kept an open mind and I fully immersed myself as best as I could in a new culture that was totally different than mine. I really hope that you guys, my viewers, will be able to study abroad yourself someday, and I think that so many more people should. And just talk with your study abroad office. If you can't afford it yourself, there's sometimes scholarships that can help you along, and I actually, as a fun fact, I went on a scholarship as well. So I hope you guys will study abroad in the future, and I hope this video was helpful for you. So yeah, those are my study abroad experiences wrapped in a nutshell. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you have any questions whatsoever or anything you'd like to know more, comment in the comment box below. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye!